Hi, my name is Aya. You're watching Aya Reads, and I'm here to recommend you some age gap romances. So, age gap is one of those tropes that sometimes I take issue with because I just find like the older character to be way too childish for the age they're supposed to be. But these ones I have loved very much. I'm gonna start with the age gaps where the man is older and the woman is younger, and then at the end, I'm gonna have some where it's the other way around, where the woman is older and the man is younger. But I'll have timestamps in the video, so you can watch whatever part you want. Or you can watch the whole video, of course. Yeah, this is, like I said, no particular order except for the first part will be where the man is older. The first one is Twisted Games by Anna Huang. So this is a princess bodyguard romance, and so this is forbidden. And honestly, the age gap is the least of their problems because obviously the main problem here is that she's a literal princess and she's the heir to the throne and he's the bodyguard. But he's also 10 years older than her, and eventually that does become a little bit of an issue here, mainly because he's just throwing everything in the kitchen sink at her to try and dissuade her from them getting together. And one of his reasonings is his age. He's, like I said, he's 10 years older, and she, in this book, she's like in her early 20s, I'm pretty sure, so he's in his early 30s. Yeah, Twisted Games is the second book in the Twisted series, and like I said, you follow a princess and a bodyguard. Basically, she used to have this other bodyguard, but she's from this made-up country, like a Genovia type country. Her previous bodyguard moves back to the country because he recently became a father and he wants to not travel the world with her because she's going to school in the US, so he doesn't want to stay away from his child for that long, so he leaves. And then she gets assigned a new bodyguard, and this new bodyguard is Reese, and he is different from her other bodyguard. The other one was a little bit looser on the rules, whereas Reese is very strict. He wants her to be safe, and therefore he has all these rules in place that she hates. Eventually that leads to her being a little bit isolated because since her brother abdicated the throne, she's now the heir. So that makes her safety very much a priority. First of all, she kind of hates him, but then she's really attracted to him. And he's obviously also very attracted to her. And eventually they just cannot really stay away from each other. And there's this scene in here where he makes her crawl, which just like, I have been thinking about that scene ever since I first read it. So I do love that. Like in the real world, she's obviously his boss, but then in the bedroom, he's the boss. But yeah, there is an age gap and it is significant at some point. Your dad will do. Obviously, ex-boyfriend's dad always goes hand in hand with age gaps because usually the boyfriend or the ex-boyfriend is around the same age as the heroine, which means his dad is significantly older, obviously. So Your Dad Will Do is one of the few ex-boyfriend's dad's romances that I enjoy, because with ex-boyfriend's dads, it's very hard for me to get on board because not for the female point of view, but mainly for the male point of view. Like, what kind of father sleeps with his son's ex? Like, you gotta be some shitty dad to do that. But with this book, the dad did not claim to be a good guy at all. Like, he didn't give a fuck. And I kind of appreciated that. Like, either do everything in your power to feel bad about the situation and make amends, or just accept the fact and just own the fact that you're a shitty dad. And this guy really did. So basically this girl, her boyfriend, I believe he cheated on her, and now she wants to get revenge, and she like knocks on his dad's door and she's like, you know what, I want to get revenge and I want to fuck you. And he's pretty much on board right away, and they spend this like weekend together and they are replaying fantasies that they both had while she was staying at his place while still dating his son. So there were like some innocent scenes, like innocent moments of them sitting on the couch together watching a movie with the boyfriend, and now they are replaying that scene where they would actually end up fucking. So this is a novella, very, very smutty novella. Like, this basically all sex, no plot, which works for this book because Katie Robert does really know how to write smut very well, and she did it perfectly in this book. And the age gap in here is, I believe it's about 20 years. This does end in an HEA, so they do end up together. Next is a smaller age gap, but it's one that was significant at one point, and it's Powerless by Elsie Silver. So the actual age gap is only about 5 years, but especially in the beginning, it plays a major role in him rejecting her over and over again. So basically this is a childhood friends to lovers romance. Basically Jasper, the adopted Eton child, so his family treated him very poorly. And then one day Bo realized that he was sleeping in his car, so he asks his dad to take him in. So of course Harvey does. The Edens have a cousin named Sloane, and every summer she used to stay at their place for a couple months. And then the first time she saw Jasper, she immediately fell in love with him. She was 10, he was 15. So they became friends, but along the way, she confessed that she did love him twice. And the first time, she was still in high school, whereas he was just starting in the NHL. This is a hockey romance. So he knew that he could not be seen going to a high school prom, even though he does obviously, he loved her as a friend at that point. She was 16 or 17 when she asked him, and he was 22. So that age gap was big. And he was also a professional hockey player, so he could not do that. So that is mainly where the age gap comes in, because she just feels like since he already rejected her twice, that she never stands a chance. And one day she just ends up moving on and she gets married, or is planning on marrying somebody else. And then on the day of her wedding, she finds out that that man has been cheating on her. So she asks Jasper to whisk her away, and he does. And eventually they go on this road trip, and feelings finally get confessed, and they finally get together. And I really loved it. Like I said, at the present time, the age gap is not a factor at all, because it's only 5 years. And at this point, she's 27 or something. So that's not an issue. But of course, when she's still in high school and he is starting his career and he's an adult, that is an issue. So that's why I put it in here. This is one of my favorite books, and it's definitely my favorite in the Chestnut Springs series, so I would highly recommend it. Next is actually the 10th book in the Immortals After Dark series by Cressley Cole, and it's Dreams of a Dark Warrior. So in this book, you follow Regan and Declan. And basically this is a reincarnation story, but the first time they meet is centuries ago, where he's this warlord and she's this little girl. And that is basically the age gap. He's an adult, he's already, like I said, a warlord, he's fighting, and she's still a little girl. But if I remember correctly, there was this prophecy that they would get together. So he kind of just kept her and took care of her, but obviously nothing romantic happens until she is of age, and then they do get together. But there's obviously a very significant age gap, but I don't think that mattered back then. And then actually this turns into a woman is older than the man, because since she's immortal, she's just living her life. But so there's this curse. So the warlord ends up dying, but he keeps getting reincarnated. Wow, I said that weird. He keeps getting reincarnated. Yeah, I guess that's right. So, and every time he comes back, he finds her again, and every time he remembers that she's the love of his life and they're supposed to be together, he ends up dying. She's kept living, so she's been living all these years, so that is kind of also an age gap. But usually with books with immortal characters, I don't really count that as an age gap, even though technically it is. But now he's Declan. He's a brutal soldier, and his mission in life is to murder every single immortal creature, including her. So this is actually very sad, where he's torturing her to get her information, and she knows who he is, and she's debating, because what he's doing is pretty awful. So she kind of wants him to remember so that he can die, even though he's technically the love of her life. This is heartbreaking. And of course, this is one of those books in Cressley Cole's universe where you cannot understand how these two will make it work in the end. Because first of all, he's doomed to die once he remembers what happened to her. Plus, he literally tortured her and everybody she knows and loves. So how are they going to get their HEA? But of course, she manages to give them an HEA, and I really loved it. And of course, like I said, especially their beginning, there is a significant age gap. Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. I don't remember the age gap, but Callum is a couple years older than Ada. And you can definitely see that in the way they approach things. And the fact that she's just this brash heroine makes her a little bit immature. So this is a series of mafia romances, and this is the first one. So the Griffins and the Gallows. There isn't actually a war, but it's kind of been simmering, and especially the kids kind of hate each other. So one day the Gallows crash the Griffins' party, and Ada ends up accidentally burning down Callum's office. And because of that, him and his buddy track them down, and he ends up breaking her brother's leg, which ends up derailing his career in basketball. That is a very sad story. And because their fathers want to prevent an all-out war, they force them to get married to each other. Before the wedding and after the wedding, they do some petty things to each other and almost kill each other a couple times. And yeah, he is in the middle of starting his career. He wants to get into politics, and I believe she recently graduated, so that is kind of the age gap. And like I said, even though he does some petty things to her as well, but the petty things she does really, to me, make clear that she is very much younger than he is. But I really love this book. I know some people have issues with this book, and I get that, but I really loved it. And I love how throughout the series you do see Ada mature a little bit. But I did like the fact that she was young and brash and he was buttoned up, and she kind of loosened him up a little bit. So, yeah. And now for the last romance where the man is older and the woman is younger, and it's Irresistible by Melanie Harlow. So this is a single dad nanny romance, and you follow, I forget their names. You follow Franny and Mac, and I believe this is also a 10-year age cap. So he's a single dad and his wife left him recently, and he's pretty much been struggling keeping everything together, his household, his children, his job. So Franny notices. So her parents own the Cloverleaf Farms, and he's a CFO. So she ends up offering to babysit his girls whenever he needs. And she's beautiful, but she's 27 and he's 37. First of all, he feels like he's way too old for her, and he also thinks that he's barely holding on, taking care of his 3 girls. He doesn't need the burden of taking care of somebody else, which to me was like a dumb reasoning, because everything proved that she would not be adding to his burden. She would be relieving him of his burdens by sharing them. So that was like a dumb plot line in here. But other than that, I really did love this book. I loved how he didn't think he was good enough because she was young. She had pretty much almost her whole life ahead of her, and he felt like he already has like 3 kids. Like there are points that definitely he thinks that he's way too old for her. One of the reasons is because the age gap, but also because he feels like there are completely different places in their lives. Like she's 27, she doesn't have any kids, whereas he has kids and they need him. And he kind of doesn't want to do that to her. But of course, she loves his kids. She loves him. She has had a crush on him for a while now. Yeah, of course, they do end up together. I believe they end up having 3 kids together as well. So he ends up with 6 children. So that's cute. And I really love how his daughters play a role in them getting together, and how they play a role in their third act conflict, or resolving that third act conflict. So that was very cute. And now for 4 books where the woman is older and the man is younger. And the first one is, of course, On the Island by Tracy Garvis Craves. So another age gap of 10 years. So this is a pretty popular book. Was a pretty popular book. And I don't really hear a whole lot of people talking about it now, but this follows a woman, Anna. She's a teacher as a regular job, but she sometimes gets a summer job tutoring kids, and this time she's tutoring TJ. But his parents are very rich, so they are flying to the Maldives. And because of romance reasons, she ends up, like the parents have gone ahead to the Maldives, and she ends up traveling with TJ on a flight a couple days later. But their plane crashes, and they end up on this deserted island for years. And he's 17, I think. Yeah, he's almost 17, and she is 30. Oh, so it's more than 10 years, actually. So they only have each other to rely on during those years while they're trapped on this island. So they need each other for food, for warmth, stuff like that. While they're there, she slowly watches him become a man. So he used to have cancer, and now he's recently been in remission. So she also slowly sees him, get better, get stronger, stuff like that. So obviously they fall in love. It doesn't happen until he's over 18, by the way, but it's still obviously an age gap, and it's not really a problem while they're on the island. Even though she, in the back of her mind, does feel like, okay, so he's 12 years younger than me, and she knows that if they weren't on the island, there was no way in hell that they would ever get together. It's mainly because they're alone on this island that they end up falling in love, whereas if they'd met in any other time, any other place, they probably wouldn't have fallen in love. So yeah, she does have that in the back of her mind, but of course, they're trapped on this island for years. They don't think they're ever gonna get out of this island, until obviously one day they get rescued, and once they're in the real world, that's where their age gap becomes a problem. Obviously they become national news, and everybody, like the whole world, is judging her for being with this kid, essentially. And even though his parents kind of do accept it pretty fast, because he's like laying down the law and he's like, no, you're gonna accept her or you're losing me, they obviously do also have issues with the fact that this is a 32-year-old woman with our 18-year-old kid. But he does really love her and they do end up making it work. I really love this book. I do have to say, so I am 30 and I can in no way imagine being with an 18-year-old. Like, what do you even talk about? But it did make sense in this book because he had to grow up so fast because he's like 50% responsible for their survival and they've seen each other at their worst. So I can imagine. So I cannot see myself with an 18-year-old, but I can see myself, like if I'm stranded on a deserted island with an 18-year-old, then yeah, I'm probably gonna fall in love with him if he saved my life a couple times and we just are the only ones on this island. Yeah, I can definitely see that. So yeah, on the island. Next is The Madness of Lord Ian Mackenzie by Jennifer Ashley. And this is a historical romance. You follow Ian Mackenzie, so he probably has autism, although it's not said in this book because that was not a thing back then. But he is known as the Mad Mackenzie. He has spent a lot of time in an asylum, and then once his brother becomes the Laird, he actually saves him from the asylum. So he collects these rare like bulls. There's this guy who's wanting to sell him this bull, but he knows that he's not a good guy. He knows that he is very sadistic and like he's just not a good guy. So he wants to introduce Ian to his fiance and he's like, you know what, I'm just gonna see what this woman is about. Maybe I'll warn her off from this man. So once he meet her, it's Beth, and he instantly is intrigued by her and he tells her that she should not be with this man because of X, Y, and Z. So she listens, but Ian cannot really stop thinking about Beth, and eventually they do get together. And she's a little bit older than him. I don't know by how many years. I don't think it's a lot, but in this time it feels like a lot because obviously like once you're like 20, you're already like an old spinster. She's been married before, so there is an age gap. And like I said, it feels larger in a historical setting because like I said, in a historical setting, usually once you're 20 and you're not married yet, you're an old spinster, let alone if you've already been married, divorced, and he's a little bit younger. So that's also like scandalous. I really enjoyed this. I do have to say that I have not continued on with the series, but I do really want to. I do have to say I didn't love this book as much as a lot of other people did. Like this is some of people's like favorite historical romances. It wasn't mine, but a part of me thinks that I read it at the wrong time and I should reread it. But I did really love their romance and how he calls her my Beth and stuff like that. That was very cute. A Lesson in Blackmail by Katie Robichaud. This is weird because there is an interesting dynamic and it's not what you think it would be because you follow a school librarian and a high school student. So I think he's 17. Or maybe he's actually 18. You would think that there's a power imbalance because she's older and she works at the school, whereas he's only a student. But the power imbalance is actually the other way around because his family is so very rich that they own the school. So he actually can get her fired whenever he wants. But he's intrigued by her. He calls her like his little mouse and she's very like mousy, very buttoned up. And he just wants to pick at her. And then one day he actually follows her, but he does think that she's very attractive. So one day he actually follows her to this club. It's actually a BDSM club where she's a sub. And he immediately blackmails her, saying that he's going to tell her secret if she does not teach him her ways. He wants to become her dom, basically. So, of course, she agrees, and they start that relationship. And I believe she's like 5 years older, I think, because she's a pretty young librarian. And I really enjoyed this. This is a novella. You fly through it. It's pretty unrealistic about how this all plays out and how like powerful he is, stuff like that. But I did enjoy it. It is a very fun novella. And I do, with BDSM romances, I do love when the sub is teaching the dom how to be a good dom. I don't know. It's like it rarely happens, but when it does, I eat that up. I just love that. And last but not least is The X Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is about Shay and Dominic. She's been working at this radio station for a while, but she never really gets appreciated by her boss. And now this young hotshot comes in and his boss is like head over heels for him. Like he gets all the best spots and all the best times and stuff like that. And they are constantly bickering at each other and they have this like rivalry going on. And then Shay has this idea for a talk show where two exes will give relationship advice. And her boss thinks that's a great idea, but he doesn't want to hire anybody else. So he wants them to pretend to be exes and give relationship advice as exes. She reluctantly agrees. And then they obviously spend a lot of time together, and so this is a fake dating with a twist, but of course they end up falling in love. So there is an age gap. I don't know by how many years, but so she's been at this public radio station for a decade, and he is fresh off his journalism master's program, so it's at least 5 years, maybe more. I really enjoyed this book. I do have to say I haven't read it in a while, but I do remember really loving it when I first read it. And the age gap does play a role, because after they do spend some time together and she realizes, okay, maybe he's not as bad as I think he was, once they almost are getting together, I believe she does end up mentioning that she's older than him and that he probably should be with somebody his own age. So yes, those were all my recommendations for age gap. Definitely let me know in the comments below some of your recommendations for age gap, because like I said, age gap is a difficult one for me. There are some age gap romances that I'm planning on reading very soon, but I would really love to know what are some of your favorite age gap romances, because I would really love to read more. Because right now I'm like on the fence. Do I really like this trope, or is it like a mad trope for me? But I do have to say I've not read a whole lot of age gaps, so maybe I just need to read more. So yeah, leave all your thoughts in the comments below, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know by leaving a like if you did, and thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.